Friends, happy Tuesday. But okay, so today I wanted to pop in and talk about Overwhelm because Overwhelm sucks. I want to share some strategies that have really helped me combat Overwhelm recently. 6 strategies to be exact. For those of you who don't know what my backstory is at all, I had a really overwhelming year last year. I was transitioning from my photography business that I had been running for 7 years to this online business, Wonderlass, which I now do full time, but it was super overwhelming because I was doing my photography business, trying to like finish that out, shooting all these weddings, clients, and I was also doing this online business, Wonderlass, and I was feeling so overwhelmed to the point where last September I went on a vacation with my boyfriend to Colorado and I had a literal panic attack in the car for no reason because I was so tightly wound up, so stressed out, so overwhelmed that no reason at all. We're driving through the mountains and I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack, and we literally had to pull over and he had to talk me down from that for like an hour. It was awful. I literally thought I was going to die, and that was the first time I'd had one, so I knew something had to change. After that like breakdown, I was like, okay, 2017 has to be different. Like, I cannot be having these panic attacks. I cannot be feeling overwhelmed every single day. It sucks. You don't get stuff done. It's crap. This year has been a lot different for me, and I'm going to share some things that have really helped in the overwhelm department. So the first thing that has helped has been just starting off with a little bit of mindset and expectation check. So a lot of times we're feeling overwhelmed. I know this was how it was for me because we have all of these self-imposed expectations and deadlines. So like you might be putting a ton of pressure on yourself and you're like, you're going to put all these deadlines on yourself. I have to reach this amount of money by this date, or I'm a total failure and I have to get this done by this date, or I'm like like, you know what I'm saying? So like sit down for a second, have a check with yourself and realize if your overwhelm is coming from stuff that is self-imposed, that you might see as the world's end. So for me last summer, I was working on launching a course and I had like 1 million deadlines I self-imposed on myself. I had this big launch goal that I self-imposed on myself, and basically I was like, I'm going to be a total failure if I don't reach it. And I was feeling extremely overwhelmed and I kept adding all of these things to my plate. So my first thing would be to step back and say, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. What of this is self-imposed? Like, do I really need to make this by this date? Is that going to be the end of the world if I don't? The next strategy that I have been doing that has really helped my overwhelm is planning my year in quarters. So I started doing this about a little over a year ago, about the time I had my mental nervous breakdown. I was at first planning my entire year at the outset, but planning my year no further than a quarter out has been a huge sanity saver. For starters, it's really overwhelming to try and think about your entire year. I mean, 12 months, that is a lot of time. Plus, you never know what's going to happen in 12 months. You could plan 12 months out, and then 3 months into the year, you might be presented with a new opportunity, or maybe something's not working, you need to change things. So things come up, things happen. Planning your year out is just not very good because you need to be flexible in business and you need to be able to adjust as you go and all that. Plus, it's just overwhelming. So planning your year in quarters. So right now, I just got done planning my 3rd quarter. I'm a little late to the game, but I only planned out my 3rd quarter, July, August, September, and I am very specific with what I'm going to focus on each quarter. What are my main goals? And I only pick a couple main goals and a couple main projects. You don't want to overload each quarter with 1 million projects because, again, you're going to be overwhelmed. And when I'm planning my year in quarters, I also theme each month. So like for July, for example, this month could be all about email list growing. And then maybe August, it's about learning Facebook ads. And then maybe September, it's going to be about funnels and automation. So everything that I am focused on doing day to day are going to be things that are going to move me towards that theme. So that has been something else that's been really helpful. Themes are great. And another reason why that helps is because I tend to like want to do everything all at the same time. I'm basically like, oh my gosh, the sooner I can do everything, the better I'm going to be faster. And so an example of this would be yesterday I was looking at all the tweaks I want to make to my automations and my funnels, and I'm like, oh, I need to start working on that like this weekend. And then I'm like, no, step back. My theme for September is automations and funnels. So that can be on hold until then. So it helps you to not get sidetracked. Even though there might be 20 million things you want to do, you know you can't do it right now because you got to stick to the theme. So that's been really helpful for me. The next thing that is really helpful is brain dumping and culling your brain dump. And I do this every quarter when I'm planning my quarter, but I also do it anytime that I'm feeling overwhelmed because I tend to get a lot of ideas all the time. Maybe some of you can relate. You like will come up with like 20 new ideas and you're like, oh my gosh, like, oh, there's so many things in my head. So doing a brain dump at the beginning of each quarter when I'm quarterly planning, and also anytime I'm feeling overwhelmed. So if you are not brain dumping, you are missing out on some like instant relief. It's starting to sound like a potty thing, but it really is satisfying. Now I'm just gonna start having potty talk. If you're keeping the stuff in your head, if you are just hanging on to everything, you're gonna feel overwhelmed all the time. You gotta get everything out of your head and onto paper. So when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I sit down, I do a complete brain dump, however long it takes. I literally write down anything and everything that is on my mind, personal tasks, business tasks, things I know I need to do, things I want to do, ideas that I have that I might want to create, literally everything, write it all down. Then after that, I go through every single item on my brain dump list and I cut and cull things. So the first thing I do is I cut items. I look at everything I brain dumped and I'm like, okay, is this in line with the purpose of my business? Is this gonna help grow my business? If it's not, then I know I can cut it. Or I will look at things and ask myself, is this something that is in line with my goals for this quarter? If it is, I'll keep it. If it's not in line with my goals this quarter, then I either cut it or I put it into a storage space that I can look at later. So something like Evernote or Trello or something like that, like an idea kind of storage space. So I go through each item, I cull things, I cut things, and then the items that are left, if they are in line with my goals, if I know they're gonna grow my business, if I know that they're in line with what I want to achieve for that quarter, then I will actually schedule each thing out. You don't just want to schedule out each item. You need to break this everything, every item that you have just brain dumped and are now scheduling. You have to break it down into the tiniest baby steps that you can think of. I'm talking every main project needs to be broken down to as many steps as possible because if you don't, then that's going to be overwhelming because then you're going to be thinking about all of the little steps that you need to do in your head and you're going to feel overwhelmed with where to start and what you need to do and what you need to do first. And the fourth thing that I do to kick overwhelm in the butt, and this is something that I learned from James Wedmore. Some of you might know him. He's in my industry. I am a student of his, and I was on a coaching call with him last month, and you might have heard this on his podcast. He has a podcast, but he says to identify and focus on the top 5% of activities in your business that are going to get you like 95% of your results. The solution to overwhelm is not simply learning how to be more productive. It's learning how to be more effective. Because you can have a giant to-do list filled with like 50 activities and you might get it all done in a day. You're super productive. You got everything on that to-do list done. But if those are activities that aren't really that important, they might not move the needle, so to speak, in your business at all, versus you maybe could have just had 3 things to do, but they had a huge impact and they moved the needle a crap ton in way less time. So that's something I have been focusing on a ton this year. You got to look at yourself, look at the things you're doing and ask like, okay, do I really need to do this? Do I really need to check my email 20 times a day? If you are, by the way, that is, no, don't do that. Do I really need to check my email 20 times a day? Do I really need to tweak my website for the 50 millionth time this week to make it look perfect? Look at the busy work that you're doing. Is it really necessary, or are you trying to put off something that you don't really want to do because it's scary, like sending an email maybe to your email list, or maybe it's launching a product and you're putting it off by doing comfort activities. Like, give yourself an ultimatum just for fun, but like, okay, I have to come up with $1,000 by midnight tonight or I am out on the streets tomorrow, literally my whole family. What do I need to do? Those are probably the activities you need to be focusing on. Number 5 is to say no, and to say no often, especially to anything that is in line with your goals. Anytime you're presented with a new opportunity or you're considering whether you want to take something new on, first of all, be realistic about your time. Ask yourself if it's in line with your business. Is it in line with your goals? Is it going to do something major for you, like grow your business in some big way? If it's not, you probably need to say no. Number 6 is, I love this one too, when you get really caught up in the how, like how am I going to make this happen, and how am I going to set this up, and how am I going to set up this tech, and oh my gosh, I need to do this, and how am I going to reach these goals, that sometimes it's easy to lose sight of why. Every single morning I take some time before I do anything, before I get on social media or do anything like that, I take some time to think about my why and to do a little bit of dreaming and like, okay, why am I in business? What vision do I have for this business? I don't think about how I'm going to get done. I just think about dreaming a little bit. Something that has helped me, speaking of kind of tying into thinking about your why and stuff. Ooh, I'm going to show you. I have a vision board that I have sitting next to my desk. So like that is my vision board by my desk. And it is filled with photos and quotes and my why for being in business and my dreams and all of that stuff. So it's right next to my desk, and when I sit down in the morning before I start, I take some time to just dream and visualize. Speaking of Overwhelm, for those of you who have not grabbed it yet, about a week and a half ago, I spent over 12 hours creating an online business roadmap, and it's free, and it's literally all of the steps for starting and growing your online business, all written down in order in checklist format, and it's got resources in there. I've linked you to tools and resources, and I've even included my top, I think, 15 favorite books for like productivity and business, but it's basically all of the steps in order so that you don't wake up every morning feeling like, what am I supposed to work on today? Or where do I even begin? Or well, I don't know what to do first, or where I should focus on first, or what piece of the puzzle is most important to do first, because it is important to do certain things in order. So be sure to grab that roadmap if you haven't already. I've gotten lots of great feedback about it. And like I said, it's clickable, filled with resources. Tried to make it as possible, so it'll help curb that overwhelm. You can download it, look at the list, see where you are on the list, check things off, and you'll know what things you should be doing next in each and every stage of your business, whether you've started or you haven't started. It's rainbow cats! I'm obsessed with cats and rainbows!